Hey guys, and welcome back to another video of Ultimate Genshin Guide series. So today I'm gonna be covering Childe, his best builds, best weapons in mostly in free to play, but I'll also cover the pay to win options because some of you might be really dirty gemmers. Anyways, this is my first guide on a 5-star character. Also, I pulled him a week ago because I lost 50-50 in his previous banners. Also, I spent this whole week learning his mechanics and all. But don't worry, if you are a beginner with Childe and you're watching this video, I'll simplify up everything for you and you'll learn in no time. So without any further ado, let's start the video. So Tartaglia, aka Childe, is currently the best Hydro DPS in the game because, yeah, I'm gonna say it, because he is the only Hydro DPS in the game right now. Yeah, jokes apart, he really is a good DPS, you might know. Also, his burst has insane scaling like Mona's burst, so he is good at nuke showcases and all. But there is a specific one role where he thrives a lot, and that's the role of enabler. If you don't know what an enabler is, I'll explain. Don't worry. Childe, on his melee stance, applies hydro so fast that you can vape, freeze, or electrocharge on it. You know how fast Childe attacks, and he applies hydro on every second hit. So by applying hydro this fast, he enables other units to deal damage on the targets. So he's an enabler. And to utilize an enabler, you need a well organized team comp. And I'll definitely describe everything regarding that in the team comp section, not now. For now, let's start with the weapons you should be using on him. For Childe, I generally would not recommend any 3-star weapons, but you can somewhat use the Raven bow if you're going with Childe Jangling comp, maybe. The passive is somewhat good in R5, but the secondary stat is Elemental Mastery, which is not very good to have in an enabler. Among the 4 stars, there are a lot of decent options for both free-to-play players and low spenders as well. So for free-to-play, if you have Rust, that's the weapon for you. And the more refinement you can get on your Rust, the better. And you can see I just need one more Rust. And as for the light spender options, we have the Viridescent Hunt. The passive is good as it helps in grouping enemies, which is useful for Childe, because of the Riptide mechanism. And crit rate in secondary stat is good as always. So if you can spend money, the Viridescent Hunt is a decent investment. Otherwise, save up your star hitters and go for the Blackcliff Warbow. The passive is same as other Blackcliff weapons. The more you kill, the more you gain attack. And over this, the weapon has crit damage as its secondary stat and a high base attack among the 4 stars, that is 44 at level 1. You can also go for the craftable prototype present, but again, you have to aim a charge shot to get that attack bonus. It's a bit inconvenient for me, so I do not use it. But if you are okay with that, it can get as good as Rust. And as for the Elemental Mastery weapons, they are not nearly good as the other weapons. As I told you, Childe is an enabler, and instead of him doing the reactions, he enables others to have reactions and get the damage done. Also, the energy recharge weapons are not needed, as Childe is a DPS, and most of his damage comes from his elemental skill and not the elemental burst. Also, there is the Hamayumi bow, the new Inazumal craftable weapon. This weapon might be kind of viable, but the passive is very strange and I'm not gonna go details into it, but I generally do not recommend it. So this is it for the 4 stars. Among the 5 stars, the best viable option will be definitely the new Polar Star. Also the Skyward Heart and the Thundering Pulse are just second to it. So if you have either one of these, I don't think it's worth pulling for the Polar Star. Obviously the Polar Star will be better in the longer run, but it's not worth it. Also, if you have the Amos bow, you can still use it on your Childe. It will be better than most of the 4 stars because of the high base attack and all. But I think an R5 Rust or R5 Blackcliff Warbow will surpass R1 Amos bow. So plan accordingly and do not waste resources on everything like I did. Now, moving to the artifact sets. It's the easiest part to explain as there is pretty much nothing to explain. Always go for the 4-piece Heart of Depth, like pretty much always. It is always the best set for a DPS Childe, a sub DPS Childe, an enabler Childe, whatever you name it, it's the best. I mean sure, you can also go with 2-piece Heart of Depth and 2-piece Gladiators or Shimenawas, but the 4-piece Heart of Depth outplays all other sets as it complements Childe's playstyle very well. And yeah, Also, there is the 2-piece Heart of Death and 2-piece Noblesse if you are going for the big PP burst damage showcase, but that's an entirely different build. But for the main build, it's 4-piece Heart of Death, like always. I think I have praised it enough. Now for the artifact main stats, and I think explaining it is even easier. So let's quickly bash through them. The flower and the plume are always the same, as you know. Just look for better substats like crit and attack, which goes without saying. As for the sands, go with an attack percentage like most of the time. EM sands is only good if you know you're gonna vaporize a lot, or if you're going for big PP burst showcase, which is of course a wave damage again. Generally speaking, an attack percentage sands is the way to go. For Goblet, definitely an hydro damage bonus. You can kind of use an attack percentage if you do not have an hydro damage bonus with you for now, but keep looking for one. And then definitely a crit in Circlet. A crit rate or crit damage, whichever you need. Just make sure you have around 60% of crit rate or more. And one more thing, that if you're using the Rust, like I use for most of the time, I think you should go with the crit rate Circlet, because having enough crit rate is really important. Let me show you my stats along with my weapons so you can understand better. With Rust equipped, I have around 56 crit rate and 142 crit damage, and hydro damage bonus is what it should be. And this ratio looks okayish, I know, but when I equip the Blackcliff Wardbow, the ratio looks really impressive. Around 180 crit damage is good. Also, this weapon has high base attack, which means a big PP damage incoming! Oh yeah, baby, give me that. Sorry for that. I have my fetishes, okay? Just kidding, just kidding. But when I equip the Viridescent Hunt, yeah, the ratio doesn't look very good. Yeah, so let me equip any crit damage circlet real quick. And boom, there you go, even better. So yeah, I'm just showing you all the possibilities I have so that you can build him the way you are comfortable with. As for constellations, I do not have any constellations, which is pretty obvious. Honestly, I don't even want to talk about these constellations in here, because I think it's kind of useless, as I never use these constellations personally, but I have to, because it wouldn't be much of an ultimate child guide without discussing his constellations. So let's quickly get over with it, shall we? The C1 decreases his scale cooldown, which is nothing game breaking, but it comes handy. C2 looks really good, as all the enemies you crit on get affected by Riptide, and when they die, they give 4 elemental energy, which is a lot of energy recharge, especially when you're fighting against mobs. And I feel like C2 is worth pulling for. The C3 and C5 are just level up for his talents, which are definitely good. But again, you have to pull like 5 shies, so good luck. The C4 is a lot, so just let me summarize it for you. So basically, when you are in your melee stance and you crit on an opponent and apply the Riptide status, these enemies will take Riptide slash damage on every 4 seconds. And these Riptide slashes would not interfere with the cooldown of those Riptide slashes which you deal when you are dealing damage to the opponents. I hope you get it. I think I overcomplicated it even more. Nah, you're smart, you get it. Just remember, it's very slight DPS increase and not worth pulling for. Now, the C6 is what you call a good constellation. Is that every time you use your burst, your E cooldown resets. And with this, you can have 100% uptime on your melee stance. But again, I don't know if it's worth going all the way up to C6. I heard lot of people saying you need C6 on your Childe to have him playable. No sir, you don't. Childe's kit feels totally complete even at C0. But you need to learn his optimum playstyles and rotations. If you can do that, he is a lot of fun, trust me. Regarding talents, there is quite a lot of things to explain, and I'll try to summarize everything in simple words. So let's start. So your normal attack is just when you use your bow to fire arrows. Generally you do not have to level it up, but I gave it a few levels because leveling it up increases the Riptide burst damage, which is sometimes useful, but I don't know, you don't have to level it up if you don't want to. Now, the elemental skill is the main source of Childe's DPS, and you have to level it up no matter what. First of all, it has its own scaling for melee stance normal attacks. Also, when you hit E, it also gives a small stance change damage, and rest of the scaling might not look much, but Childe's melee attacks are so fast that it makes up for the DPS. And one very important thing you need to remember is that the more time you spend on your melee stance, the more cooldown you'll get. So if you go back to your range stance anytime between your 30 seconds, you'll get cooldown between 6 to 36 seconds. But the moment you hit the maximum duration on your E, which is 30 seconds, you will get a whole 45 seconds of cooldown, which you do not want. And for this, you have to keep your stance changing in between fights, or you can change to your support characters, which is the same. And one more thing regarding this skill, that an enemy already having a Riptide status, when get attacked by your this melee stance, will get additional hydro damage, which is called the Riptide Slash. And this Riptide Slash scales with your elemental skill, so you don't have to worry. And as for the elemental burst, Childe has two elemental bursts, one in range stance and another one in melee stance. And to summarize both of them like that, I'm gonna say that the ranged one has comparatively low scaling than the melee one. The ranged one returns 20 energy back, while the melee one returns nothing. Also, both of the attack patterns are different, as the ranged one is like the Zhongli's burst, deals damage in front of you, whereas the melee one is like a Hutao's burst, which deals damage all around you. Except you won't be getting any health back. And one more thing, which is not really important, but I feel you should know, is when you're using your burst in your melee stance and the enemy in front has Riptide status on them, takes additional Riptide burst damage, which scales with your normal attack. And the reason why I leveled up my normal attacks to level 6, not 6, 5. Moving on to his passives, the first passive is nice, gives 8 more seconds to the Riptide duration, which is 10 seconds, making it total of 18 seconds on the enemies you do not attack. Because of course attacking on an enemy again replenishes the Riptide status. His second passive is the best, because when you crit on your melee stance, you apply Riptide status to your enemies. And without it, you won't be able to apply Riptide status on your melee stance. It won't be much fun, and also, you'll be losing a lot on the DPS department. And the third passive is like something new, if nothing else, that it increases your own party members' normal attack level by 1. But I do not get a lot of value out of it. So yeah, and one very important thing to remember, that this passive doesn't apply to your co-op teammates. And with this, the only thing I need to explain is building teams around him and we'll be done. But having the right team composition is what I think the most important in playing Childe. The very first team comp and the team which I use a lot is the Childe Beidou Fireworks team comp. It's one of the most popular teams out there, so you might have heard about it. Here, my main DPS is Beidou. Also, she has Wolf's Gravestone, so she deals a lot of damage, and Childe acts as a sub DPS enabler, applying Hydro and electrocharging everything. And I keep Kazu as the third member to utilize the 4-piece Viridescent set, and his Swirls gives elemental damage bonus, which is really good. You can use Sucrose if you do not have Kazuha, or even Venti will work. And I use Bennett as the fourth member for the insane damage bonus he gives, and healing of course, but you can use Fischl instead. Using Fischl means Electro Resonance, which means more energy recharge and more uptime on your Beidou's burst. But I do not have my Fischl built in this account, so I use Bennett instead. And one more team comp, which is also very strong, is this Childe Jangling team like this. Here, Jangling will be the main off-field DPS and Childe as an enabler, of course. And Bennett is really important in this team because of Pyro Resonance. Also, he can act as a battery for Jangling. And the last member will be an anemo character like Kazuha or Sucrose to swirl Pyro and increase your DPS even more. You can also use Childe in a perma-freeze team with Ganyu like this. The Ganyu will be of course a support Ganyu with a lot of energy recharge, and Childe and Jinkyu will keep on applying Hydro to perma-freeze the enemies and an anemo character to swirl the freeze. And if you do not have Ganyu, you can go with other cryo characters like Ayaka, Rosaria and Kea. And even Mona can replace either Jinkyu or Childe. But teams like this has less DPS potential than the two teams I talked about before. Either way, plan your team comps like this and keep your rotations good, and Childe will be very much fun to play. So this is it for this video. If you like the guide, give a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, it really helps. And comment down if I did miss anything. I'm a learner, so I make a lot of mistakes, but I'm learning, and I know this video is very late. Actually, I was stuck on something and I was not getting much free time, but it is what it is. And before this video ends, there's a showcase for you guys to enjoy. So enjoy. Bye.
全力攻撃だ。マイル、せい、そこだ。これが海山を滅ぶ。止水の矢。はっ。ほっ。た。はっ。 ばにいてくれ。はっせい、そこだ。逃げられるかな。風よ。ふっはっほっやった。よし、出発だ。全力攻撃だ。これがカイザー。マイル、そこだ。逃げられるかな。たいや
手合わせしようじゃないか。
風の赴くままに。みんなは俺が守れ。炭になるがいい。やっ止水の矢。はっはっやっほっへっはっやったっはっみんながそばにいてくれれば絆もみ違う散らまく惜しみ。へい、逃げられるかな。これが海山を滅ぼした力だ。行くぞ。たっはっはっはっいやはっはっいやふんそれはっはっそみんなは俺が守れ。止水の矢。よく見ておけ。それ兵器神速。風の行く先を。風の雲の全力攻撃だ。逃げられるかな。いやほっふんはっはっマイル、みんなは俺が守れ。せえ雲が借りなく時。炭になるがいい。やっ止水の矢。狂乱怒涛。はっやっはいやふんせい、そこだ。みんながそばにいてくれるわ。逃げられるかな。油断した。ほっこれが海山を滅ぼし。風よ、風の雲のい。はっはっはっ
冷たくさ
はっそこだ。全力攻撃だ。炭になるがいい。雲が借りなく時。逃げられるかな。はっはっいや
命を捨てに来たか。
それやみんなは俺が守る。風の歌、雲の行くごと。マイルはっいやいや行くぞ。はっせいくらえ。風よ、そこだ。せえよし、出発だ。全力攻撃。逃げられるかな。いややったはっマイルやよく見ておけ。ふっやっほっそこだ。行くぞ。みんながそばにいて。それ炭になるがいい。止水の矢。はっはっはっはっやったふんはっほっやはっ来いやせいはっいざ。みんなは俺が守れ。 もみ違う散らま逃げられるかな。はっふっはっふっはっこれはっふっいやはっはっはっいやそれそこだせえやったふっマイルふっ行こう。みんながそばにいてくれ。風よそこだ。
これが海山を滅ぼし
止水の矢はっふっほっはっふんふっふんさて全力攻撃。風の雲の
行くぞ。
たっはっ逃げられるかな。はっふん風の赴くままにみんながそばにいて。
行くぞ。炭になるが
ほったいや
やはり
いや
ここまで
やっやっ
はっせいそこだ。まだくらえ。
小賢しい
逃げられるかな。
行くぞ。
みんなは俺が守っ
よく見ておく。
はっはっほっはっいやはっはっふっ
主の勝つ
ふっ
の
はっ
ここだ
みんながそばにいる。
炭になる。
逃げられるかな。ふんほっはっいやふんいや全力攻撃だ。はっはっ風の雲の
師匠の技を食らいなさい。
逃げられるかな。はっはっいやはっいやいやマイルそこだ。みんなは俺が守れ。言いたいから我慢しろよ。